sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Kirk, just as far as his progress, he's talked about the fact that it's taken some time and he's trying to still learn a bit. Where do you perceive him to be at, 5 days or 4 days into training camp?
I think Kirk is exactly where we want him to be at this point. We really challenged the guys when we left, really all the guys when we left in the spring to make sure that when we started camp, it wasn't starting from ground zero, that we picked up exactly where we left off. And so I've been really impressed with how these guys have come in and understood the detail, and our coaching staff has done a great job making sure they were prepared.
I love how zen Wade Phillips' kid is there. Wes Phillips.
Wes is great.
It's like Kirk is exactly where we want him to be.
I like the guy. Wes
We're all
is great.
exactly where we need to be right now, here in the present moment.
No Buzz Factory there.
The beard rocking, too.
No Buzz Factory. Oh, Buzz Factory.
I love
Buzz
Judd
Factory.
buttering up these coaches and players, too, before he rips them in week 5 for underachieving after a 1-3 start. Look at you, buttering up Wes Phillips, about to rip him for his tiny play card at some point.
Doing. The quarterback keeps saying, I got to learn more. And I just was curious.
I don't think the quarterback's going to come out and say, I have a full stranglehold on this offense, and I'm about to throw for 6,000 yards, and then does the DX crotch chop and then walks off the podium. I think he's probably going to always play it.
If he did.
Yeah, it'd be amazing. I might sneak a wrestling statement in. It was a big weekend of wrestling. But let's start with Judd here. It's statements on Mackey and Judd on a Monday here. We have a buffoon of the week later on. Daily Minnesota sports, entertainment, therapy, speculation, whatever it is you're looking for from us. So, Judd, go ahead.
Viking statement number 1, I am bringing the positivity today.
Wow.
I am bringing the positivity. It's training camp. Full pads go on today. This is a time to look and say what is going to go right. And here's my statement. You guys are both going to love this. So are the fans. 3 deep. What I saw on Saturday, and I believe that this highlight is continues to float around Twitter if you want to search it and find it. Kirk Cousins, about a 35-yard pass, 30-yard pass to KJ Osborn on the type of deep route that we really didn't see KJ used last year. 3 deep. I think that there is a real potential, at least, that, yes, Jefferson's fantastic, all world. Thielen is always going to get his as long as he is here with Kirk, no question about that. KJ Osborn, though, went from being non-factor as a receiver in 2020 to being a very pleasant, nice surprise and a very good receiver, I thought, in 2021. But I don't know that he was ever relied upon and seen as a really true, consistent option. And I know that he was not, especially for what we like to call explosive plays. 3 deep is a real possibility in the incorporation of KJ Osborn, who might get the least attention of the 3 and thus will find himself in a very good spot to contribute.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I don't know that I love him as a number 2, because there was some chatter about how, you could trade Adam Thielen at some point, but if KJ Osborn is your number 3 and he gets a lot of one-on-one matchups and just, if Justin Jefferson is being taken away for a portion of a game, he's a guy. We saw it last year. I mean, hell, he hit a game-winning touchdown reception at one point. So he can burn one-on-one coverage if you're not paying full attention. So I don't know. Do you think this 3 deep is better on paper than the late 90s 3 deep? Randy Moss is probably better than Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, Chris Carter over Thielen. Yeah, and Jake Reed. Jake Reed was a guy who easily could have been or stayed the 2.
Yeah.
Like, to your point, Phil, on KJ, we still don't know yet, right? Like, maybe the 2, but, certainly very much suited for the 3rd receiver role. So, yes, I think the Carter, Moss, Reed was better, but I think there's options here that could give the Vikings a viable way to get Osborn certainly some more explosive plays.
He's kind of the Van Jefferson, if we're going to do the Rams comparison thing again. So Van Jefferson caught 50 passes. He played all 17 games, caught 50 passes for 802 yards, 6 touchdowns, and he led the team in yards per reception. Just a lot of deep shots down the field because he was streaking wide open. If you add up Robert Woods, who got hurt halfway through the season, and Odell Beckham Jr., who basically took his spot halfway through the season, those guys combined for 72 catches and just under 900 yards and 9 touchdowns. That seems to me, that's an Adam Thielen number. So Jefferson going bonkers for like 1,600 yards, and then Thielen coming in around like 900 or 1,000 yards, and then KJ Osborn coming in with like 50 catches for 800 to 850 yards. I'd sign up for that all day long if all three of those guys stay healthy.
Yeah, he averaged like 13 yards per catch last year, and to Judd's point, a game-winning grab, had that great grab against Arizona, too, like on the second play from scrimmage against the Cardinals last year. Like, he's definitely got some explosive threat, and they've lacked that. Like, when Jarius Wright left for the Vikings, I believe after 2017, like, Jarius Wright was just their old, reliable, like, third and short. They needed conversion. They got it. They got Jarius Wright for 6, like, and I think KJ Osborn's actually a better receiver than Jarius Wright is, and they need that third guy that takes pressure off Jefferson and Thielen. I think there is even more to his game going forward in 2022.
Yeah. Okay. Declan.
All right. My first Vikings-related statement, I'll say this. Give Kellen Mond every opportunity to succeed, which it appears like they are doing in this first week of training camp. So Kellen Mond, 4-year starter, right? He was the 66th overall pick in the draft just a year ago, which is actually pretty remarkable because he was basically in witness protection. He had the COVID situation last year that just really stunted his NFL growth. But really think about that. There was only 65 players in the draft that were taken ahead of Kellen Mond last year. And he was on the practice squad. Sean Mannion beat him out for QB2. And now Kevin O'Connell is giving him every chance to be the second quarterback. I am not implying, and I'm sure there might be some Kirk Crusaders saying, oh, so you're wanting to be the 2 so you eventually can succeed Kirk? Well, if that is the long-term play, awesome. I would love that to be the case. But Kirk Cousins is going to be your starting quarterback for this year and potentially next season, right? But Kellen Mond deserves a shot here to be the legitimate backup quarterback. The Vikings have had a history of having pretty decent backup quarterbacks and quarterbacks that have been called into action and had to perform well when called upon. And Kellen Mond, who was great at Texas A&M, and he's getting a coach who's leaning into his offense. He's now healthy. He isn't dealing with COVID. He isn't dealing with an injury. He's a 6'3", 4-year starter from a Power 5 conference. Give him every opportunity to be a backup quarterback to Kirk, and I hope he wins the job.
Yeah, I think that's... we're kind of beyond the point of, like, is he going to challenge Kirk at some point to be the starter? At this point, it's if Kirk goes down for a month, can someone come in and score more than 13 points?
Right.
Can someone come in and just not look totally lost? And that would be a great step. Speaking of Kirk, here's my first statement. Apparently, we're already talking about contract extensions again. So Charlie Walters posted a piece, shooter in the Pioneer Press. And I'll admit, as I click on this, it's not allowed. It's behind a paywall here, and I don't remember my login for the Pioneer Press. So maybe one of you guys can help summarize here. But the headline is, a postseason return for Vikings could result in another Kirk Cousins payday.
Yeah.
Admittedly, I have not read this yet, but this makes sense. If they go to the playoffs, they take a big step forward. Maybe they win 11 games or something, 10 or 11 games. They go to the playoffs, clear step forward. Everyone's loving the first year of Kevin O'Connell. Well, you're not going to want to go into a lame duck contract season, right? He's got 2 years left starting now. Are you going to want to go into the last year of a contract when he just had a big season in the KOC offensive scheme? And so, yes, this is without having read into this article because I can't find
There's
my
not
login.
much more there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're kind of doing this already. We're like 5 months away from a Kirk Cousins contract extension discussion again.
Make no mistake, it is completely reckless speculation, which I absolutely
not that reckless,
love.
though.
It's reckless speculation, and you know what it is? It's sort of buzzing too. It's the Buzz Factory thing.
Charlie's the godfather of the Buzz Factory.
Charlie's the best. I love Charlie. Yeah. I mean, this is the conundrum, right? Like, if this all works, if this works, if they're a playoff team, hell, they win a playoff game. People are like, oh, Kevin O'Connell, the offense, it's unlock Kirk. If this all takes place, yeah, I don't think you're going to be like, well, now we're going to draft one. No. And keep in mind, too, as much as we all rightfully so complain about the cap, it continues to go up. So, like, it's not coming down. The only question is, and this is what makes this so interesting, what's Justin Jefferson going to get? Debo just got extended now. I mean, these contracts for receivers are going through the bleeping roof. And next spring, I guarantee you, JJ, he might say that he's not, quote, fond of money, but you know what? He's fond of status. And there ain't no way we're going to get to next spring and Jefferson's going to be like, oh, I'll play on that small fourth year. No problem with that, right? So that becomes the question of, if this goes really well, what do the contracts look like?
Well, how many of these big contracts that are being signed lately here by wide receivers, how many of them are also running up against also highly paid quarterbacks? There's a couple for sure. So Tyreek Hill, no. Not yet anyways, because Tua is still a couple years away if they even go there with him, right?
Yep.
Devontae Adams, kind of. So Derek Carr signed that extension, but it's actually one of those sort of smoke and mirrors extensions that they could get out from underneath if they wanted to in a couple years. DeAndre Hopkins signed one, but I think it's actually, I guess it's up in 2024. And Kyler Murray just hit. So there are some. Yes. I mean, Cooper Kupp just signed his, and Matthew Stafford just signed an extension. So you can, depending on where you're at. The good news for the Vikings is they get Christian Darrisaw for 4 more years. So their left tackle is going to be on a rookie scale contract. They may have 2 starting cornerbacks on rookie scale contracts for at least the next 2 to 3 years in Cam Dantzler and Andrew Booth Jr. starting in 2023, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they move on from a Harrison Smith or an Eric Kendricks and get younger. I mean, you could wind up with Lewis Seen and Cam Bynum as your starting safeties if you. So there's probably ways to make it work if you do want to pay both Kirk and Justin Jefferson at the same time. I think what I would wonder here is, all right, you have a big season, you win 11 games, you go 11-6. The vibe is great. Cousins puts up big numbers. Maybe the Vikings win a playoff game. Does Cousins ever get to the point, unlike so far in his career, where he's okay not wringing every drop of water out of the contract rag, right?
Hell no.
And some people are going to say, well, he probably took a deal that was less than market value this year, to which I would say, kind of. I mean, it was a short-term deal that still has him as the 3rd highest cap hit in the NFL. Right. So I guess maybe he could have squeezed more out of it, but he still has the 3rd highest cap hit. Does he get to a point if this season goes well where he might say, all right, listen, let's do like a 4-year deal. Maybe there's a void year or something, and let's really bring my number down for a couple years. I've already made $200 million in my life playing football. I'm good. I just care about legacy and winning a championship. Does he get to that point if they have a big season? He hasn't to this point in his career?
No, he doesn't.
Maybe a culture change will help. I don't know.
No, I think that the genius of
a
Kirk,
real partnership with your head coach. We're in this together. Take a little less money.
The genius of Kirk is very simple, and it's smart as hell. It's this: he does short-term contracts because they're not phony. Then, because the phoniest thing is that guy just signed a 6-year contract for $275 million. Now let's look at the actual cash. Oh, he's going to make $12 next year, right? Yeah. So, like, the genius of Kirk is shorter term, guaranteed, all real. I do not see him ever, and I almost don't blame him at this point. I don't see him ever backing off that. I mean, Patrick Mahomes' contract looks great, but the way that they can now shift things around, which is a partnership, no question, benefits the Chiefs first.
I have faith in my quarterback. I have faith in my quarterback.
I'm not even ripping him.
I'm praising him. At some point will do a team-friendly.
He's a business genius, you guys. He's a business genius. All right.
He's a businessman, and he's a businessman. Okay, Judd, go ahead.
My next statement, shout out to my partner, Phil Mackey, because my statement is this.
Oh, wow.
Cam Danceler has looked fantastic. Now, we don't put the pads on until today. I get that. But as
you think my guy's going to get worse when the pads come on?
But as we talked about in the special PD on Sunday, the I think one of the highlights, one of my top 3 highlights of the first week of practice was this: Danceler against Thielen. It was fantastic. They both won at times, but Danceler won a lot. And Cam Danceler now with, I think it's safe to say this, the confidence of the coaching staff and probably what was largely the nightmare of last year, where, keep in mind, you guys, he was inactive in week 1. So he wasn't only just like in the doghouse, he was in street clothes, in sweatpants in week 1. That's done now. And Cam Dantzler, as Phil predicted, has continued to look fantastic. And I'm not talking just good. I'm talking he's being tested against some good players and consistently holding his own so far.
That's right. Hold me closer, corner Danceler. I think I legitimately think he's the best cornerback on the team with Patrick Peterson sort of aging out. And the real question is going to be right. If Dantzler's as good as I think he is and Andrew Booth Jr. progresses, this is a great problem to have. Do you sit Pat Peterson at some point and go with the youth movement of good young players with upside? I don't know. I'd love to run into this problem in about 5 or 6 weeks from now if old Patrick Peterson looks like he should be doing more podcasting than playing football.
Still looks really good, though, man.
He has a future in podcasting, too.
He looks great, though, man. Dude is chiseled.
Patrick Peterson or Cam
Yes.
Dantzler?
Well, both of them. But Patrick, for an old guy, is in unbelievable shape.
You know who else is chiseled? Maya Mackey.
Oh.
She's in great shape because she has a nutritious bowl of food every morning. Look at her. Look at the muscles for the YouTube audience here.
How does she hold herself up like that for so long? Very impressive.
Strong leg muscles. She's got those. She's got the big chest muscles and biceps there, triceps, and it's all because of her Nutrisource chicken and rice. Okay, so not only does it help her with nutrition and help her stay in shape, it also helps with her digestion and gut health, which helps old Macadac here as he's trying to pick up the poops. We don't want inconsistencies there. We want the Tootsie Rolls.
Yep.
That's what we're looking for.
Exactly.
So House, I know you've been sprinkling in some little treats and stuff. You got the Nutrisource bags at your house for Stella.
Yep.
What's the report here?
She loves it. Absolutely. And look, she's old. She is the Patrick Peterson of our household, right? So we got to keep Stella in great shape, in fighting condition. And yes, and by the way, the treats, she loves the treats. The treats are fantastic. And I like them, too, because they're small, so I can get some. Like, big treats, you got to break them up. And you're like, am I giving the dog too much or not? Now, no question about it. So she is in love with the food. And most importantly, her dumb dad now knows exactly how much to give her.
It's the official dog food of Mackey and Judd here. NutrisourcePetFoods.com to find a retailer near you. NutrisourcePetFoods.com. More fantasy football emails coming into the Mackey inbox here. Declan, where are you going to be playing fantasy football this season?
My friends at Underdog Fantasy that have rejuvenated my love of fantasy football. So actually, they just announced today the puppy's coming back. And you're probably wondering, what's the puppy? We just talked about the Nutrisource. Well, the puppy is a $5 entry, okay? Gets you $5 and you draft your team, all right? 17 round, you get your quarterback, you still find your running backs, your wide receiver, your tight end. $5 entry with up to $1 million cash prizes. It's a season-long type of game where 1 through 14, they set a regular season with the playoffs, and then you're competing with other people for your chance to win some big-time money. This is why I love now this new fantasy football, because I don't want to worry about setting my lineup, okay? What Jets, Bills players playing? Like, God, I don't want to have to worry about that. I sleep in sometimes on Sundays. I miss those Adam Schefter notes. My friends at Underdog will just set the best possible lineup for me, which is the best part about Underdog Fantasy. Join with promo SCORE, SKOR, and they'll match your first deposit up to $100. Underdog Fantasy, the new favorite fantasy football friends of Mackey and Judd.
Boom. All right, Dex, back to you here. Viking statements.
All right, a little impromptu statement after Judd's statement, because I had a great episode, cheap plug for me here. Great episode of Vent Line on Purple Daily. It's always a great episode. I do it every week. I love the show, and I had two awesome guests, Amari and Ralik, who were on with me on Sunday. And we actually talked extensively about the cornerback room. And my statement is, are we actually sleeping on the Vikings cornerbacks? Because I know you might say, yes, it's a weak position, right? Patrick Peterson's really their only viable veteran there. Cam Dantzler's played well when called upon, but was in the doghouse last year. He was injured in his rookie season. What are you going to get out of it? But then you really start breaking it down, okay? Like, if Cam Dantzler's indeed cornerback 1 and is the needle that he should be, well, that's a good thing, right? Andrew Booth was a first-round grade who fell to the second because of injuries, and Patrick Peterson this week called him he's going to be a problem out there, as an Andrew Booth is going to be causing problem for opposing wide receivers. And then Shannon Sullivan, just your nice slot cornerback, right? Like a guy who has been in this NFC North, knows that division well, can probably maybe help you scout a few things against the Green Bay Packers. I actually think we're kind of maybe undervaluing the cornerback room for the Vikings. Is it going to be as staunch as the offense? Is it going to carry also the defense? Probably not. But I also think it's very underrated, and it actually could turn some heads this year as the season progresses.
And don't forget, too, the most important thing, the marriage, the clicking between pass rush and coverage, right? And so if Hunter and Zadarius Smith are getting after opposing quarterbacks, guess what you got? You've got pressure on a quarterback then to make plays, and the cornerbacks then don't have to stay in coverage as long because the ball has to come out. So, yes, I think if this whole thing goes as planned, you're probably right. I think the worst thing that you could possibly do is ask your corners to maintain coverage for an infinite amount of time. And Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter playing will alleviate that. So, yes, I think the answer to your question very well might be around a sound yes. The cornerback room is going to be better than we expected.
Next statement here. I find Arif Hassan's 53-man roster projection very interesting. So a lot of agreements here, keeping 3 quarterbacks, which isn't a guarantee if you look at what the Rams have done. That sometimes they keep 2. KOC's coming from that Sean McVay philosophy, but he's got him keeping 3. I agree. He's got kind of running backs and fullbacks all in one here. He's got 5, so meaning Ty Chandler and CJ Ham both make the team as number 4 and 5. He's got 6 receivers, including Emir Smith-Marset, BC Johnson, Jalen Naylor. But here's what I find interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Only 4 linebackers making the team. This kind of plays into what Judd's been saying.
Yes.
Only 4 linebackers. And again, Arif might be wrong, but Arif does a great job with these projections. Jordan Hicks, Eric Kendricks, Brian Asamoah, Troy Dye. And then Blake Lynch would be out, Chaz Surratt out, and then a couple other guys out. For a 3-4 defense, you're thinking, wait a second. 3-4 defense? You only got 4 linebackers on the roster. So you're going to put Kendricks and Jordan Hicks out there as starters, and then you only have 2 backups or guys to rotate in. Well, your edge rushers are going to account for a couple of those linebacker spots. So maybe like Zadarius Smith is one of them. There might be times where Danielle Hunter is one of them. But this also lends more to your theory that you're going to keep 4 safeties. You're going to keep additional edge rushers. So you could see easily if they only keep 4 linebackers how Lewis Cine might play a little linebacker over here. Mm-hmm. Edge rushers that were traditionally edge rushers with a hand in the dirt, like Danielle Hunter, would be classified sometimes as an outside linebacker. So yes. I just think it signifies the changes in the air schematically that they may only keep 4 actual linebackers.
Yeah. And look, because I think if you go through the roster right now, Hunter, Zadarius Smith, Patrick Jones, I believe, all of those guys have been changed from, in 2021, defensive ends to now outside linebackers. So, yeah, there's their plan, but it's just so interesting to me how the specs on that position physically have changed, too.
And he's got Zach McLeod on the roster, listed more as an edge than linebacker. So that's another sort of hybrid there, outside linebacker / edge rusher.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's gonna be fun to watch. I am excited. I'm telling you guys, this is as excited. Sizzler. This is as excited as I have been. Sizzler. Like from a curiosity standpoint, in years.
Yeah, I agree. This is a breath of fresh air, man. It's great. All right, back to Judd here.
All right, final Viking statement from me, and it's very simple. It's just ready for the next step. Pads come on today, and this is when jobs are won and jobs are lost. There are 11 padded practices. They're allowed 16. KOC has decided to go with 11 because, probably wisely, he does not want to tax his players. But those 11 practices are going to be paramount at the bottom of the roster for guys to make this team. And for guys to make impressions. For instance, Lewis Cine with the pads on. Now, he makes the team. Don't get me wrong, okay? But with the pads on, does he play to an extent where they say he has to start? Like, Bynum's really good. We like Cam, but today is the start of when jobs are officially won and when jobs can be lost, because these 11 practices are going to be incredibly important. I would argue as important as the preseason games, if not more so, because they're controlled, but they're not at times. Impressions will be made starting today.
Because you can control the situations, right?
Correct.
And I say this without my tongue pressed in my cheek here. You're going to run fully padded 11-on-11 red zone, 2-minute, third down, 3rd and 9, right? You get to and you're going to get some of those in a preseason game, but you can't control it. You might only run into like one red zone defensive situation, and then because the other team is terrible or something. I don't know. Or your first team defense is too good, and you don't get to face a red zone situation. Football. I actually have a non-football one, Deck. So if you have a Vikings one here, why don't you clear it out, and then I'll.
Just my last one, and we kind of talked about it on Purple Daily a little bit, but just my statement is, and it's to Kevin O'Connell. Just I would pick your battles differently. You know, this whole please don't film our practice thing. Just if this is the main cog of Vikings training camp drama, then I do think the Vikings are in probably a fine place, right? There's no COVID situation. There's no people aren't getting vaccinated. There aren't players at wit's end of each other. If this is the main problem, I guess we're okay. But also just KOC, it just seems like you're picking a weird battle. I think you're dying on a weird hill here. There's going to be film. There's going to be stuff out there. I don't think you need to get completely ahead of your skis that you're worried about things being leaked on Twitter. Like Matt LaFleur and other players and other coaches aren't necessarily going to the Twitter and being like, well, this is how we're going to stop the Vikings in week 1. Just seems like a weird hill to die on if I'm a head coach.
Yeah, it's just focus on you. Focus on...
You worry about you.
Vince Lombardi used to say, we can tell them what we're going to run, and they aren't going to be able to stop it.
But he hated Twitter a lot.
65 years ago. But
Vince didn't like Twitter. He got ticked off when people would post stuff on Twitter, and then TikTok came along, and Vince really hated TikTok.
Yeah, I don't think Vince Lombardi would have been in on TikTok here. Okay, final statement for this portion of the proceedings here. Ric Flair probably didn't need to be wrestling last night.
Boy.
At age
how bad
73.
was it?
Well, I didn't purchase the pay-per-view, but there was enough clips being thrown around, and I was sort of refreshing the Ric Flair search on Twitter last night during what was billed as Ric Flair's last match. Now, mind you, his original last match took place, I think, in like 2008 or something. It was like 12 or 14 years ago against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And Rick got up at the end of the match. You know, the match was still going on, and Rick was bawling, getting off the mat because
you told me about that.
He knew that the match was about to end. Shocking. I know the ending was determined. And so he gets the fists up, and he's like, come on. He's got tears coming down his face, and Shawn Michaels mouths, I'm sorry, I love you, and then super kicks his head off of his shoulders and then pins him for the 1, 2, 3.
I'm in my feels right now.
Kisses his forehead as he ends his career. And that was a perfect way to end his career at age 60 or whatever he was at the time. And then he goes to, I think it was Impact Wrestling, and does some bloody matches against their young talent. And then age 73 last night, and he comes out with a T-shirt on. He had, you know how old people have like the wrinkly, loose skin on their legs too?
I'm telling you, yes.
So he had that. And
don't come back.
It was a tag match, thankfully, but he was featured in large chunks of it, and he looked absolutely exhausted after about 6 minutes. And there was times where he couldn't even like sell the moves that, like, you know, somebody would be punching him and he was just like on the ground about to die and pass out. This dude almost died of a heart attack like 3 or 4 years ago. Has a pacemaker implanted in his body. Found a doctor to greenlight this match, and they packed an arena, the Nashville Auditorium, whatever it's called. But man, that was uncomfortable. Of course, he bladed. He got the blood pouring down the face. But I just don't know that anyone needed to see a 73-year-old Ric Flair flopping around last night, completely out of gas. I'm a big wrestling fan, but
yeah, me too. And it was a good weekend of wrestling. It really was. But that Rick, it's time to go, man. It's just it's all good. You've accomplished everything. You're on the Mount Rushmore wrestling, probably, right? Like, come on, man. You don't have to continue to go out there.
Exactly right.
Judd, did you happen to see any clips of the main event at SummerSlam, WWE SummerSlam on Saturday night? Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns for the 600th time?
I think I did. I think I did see some tweets, but I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it.
So it was the first it was the first main pay-per-view, the first pay-per-view period since Vince McMahon has been out of the company.
Yep.
And so so I'll give you 2 highlights here that I think you can appreciate. Number one is that for years and years, people have made fun of Michael Cole, who's the lead play-by-play guy for WWE, for 20 years. Mm-hmm. They've made fun of him because he's just kind of corny on commentary, and he'll just like not say certain words, but he's always had Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon sits behind the curtain at a table with a headset on, basically like feeding lines and being very much a micromanager. Imagine during Purple Daily or Mackey and Judd, if Declan was just in your ear. Okay, Judd. Okay, we needed to talk about the Twins here. Judd, don't say Kirk. Don't talk about Kirk. Nope. Go over here.
Not Joe Smith. Nope.
And so people were lauding Michael Cole on Saturday for just being a free man on commentary. You're not supposed to name the referees. You're not supposed to name the cameramen. You're not supposed to talk about history. And he was doing all these things. You're not supposed to call it wrestling because it's not wrestling. It's sports entertainment. And he's calling it wrestling on Saturday night and stuff. So an unleashed play-by-play man. But then at the end of the match, or toward the end of the match, Brock Lesnar, who drove some sort of like Bobcat-looking forklift thing out to the ring.
I did see that, yeah, and tilted the ring.
He lifted the ring up in the air, so they found a way to make that match interesting. And then Brock, after it was over, went up into the ring, grabbed his cowboy hat, and then slid down the ring and stuff. So
I thought Brock quit again.
Stuff.
No?
Well, he left SmackDown the day that the Vince McMahon stuff came out, but then they like coaxed him to come back.
Oh, okay.
He's a cantankerous guy. Brock Lesnar.
Go away, Brock, too. Just go away. Sick of Brock.
Yeah, I think it's time for him to.
It's a great former Viking. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Started a huge fight with the Chiefs.
You know, they should just bring him back to start fights against the 49ers this weekend.
They need defensive tackle.
Pay him $500,000.
Hell, there's no question about it.
So anyhow, there's your wrestling update from the weekend, Judd Zulgad.